It's a warm welcome to Africa 360. We're the program that goes right across the continent and beyond to bring you news and views you won't get anywhere else. Of course, with a distinctly African perspective. I'm Chris Maroleng and you're watching Africa 360. Well, the 2014 FIFA World Cup tournament currently being held in Brazil is reaching its climax, and despite Africa's representation in Brazil, our teams unfortunately have once again failed to reach the highest levels of this tournament, being eliminated in the group and knockout stages. Well, since this global soccer spectacle started 8 decades ago, no African team has ever reached the semi-finals, let alone lifted the most famous trophy in the world. So, why do African national teams always fail to impress on the global stage? Well, to help us understand this a little bit better, ENCA's senior field producer, Dumali has been following the World Cup tournament very closely in Brazil, and perhaps he has the answers. Do you, Dumali?
Thank you very much, Chris. Now, this is a very complicated question. Why do African teams fail? Since its inception in 1930, no African team has ever lifted the FIFA World Cup. If you look at the wealth of talent in the African squads, this stat is absolutely shocking. Many of the African players for years now, decades in fact, have been plying their trades in some of the top European leagues and have been drawing first-team places amongst stiff competition from some of their more illustrious counterparts from South America and from Europe in these particular teams. And many of them have gone on to be the backbone of these teams and lead these sides to glory in prestigious European competitions like the UEFA Cup and, of course, the UEFA Champions League. Now, this is a story that everyone on the continent would know. So why does this particular success not translate to the national teams? This is a very, very complicated question which we are trying to answer today. Now, if you look at what has been happening, for instance, if we go to the teams that participated, you just have to go to the groups here. We'll go to Group A. And in Group A, that is where we will find Cameroon, the Indomitable Lions. Now, this is a team that had a star-studded lineup. Much was expected of Samuel Eto'o and his charges in this particular World Cup. But just a look at the graphic here, and you see that after the group stages, Cameroon were languishing at the bottom of the group with a negative goal difference of -8. Why is the question? It comes down again to discipline. Some very unsavory scenes being witnessed there during their games in Brazil, with the players having a go at each other on the pitch, and really their form in terms of how they played was unconvincing. Many fans saying that they expected more of the Indomitable Lions. The group itself was known as the group of death. If you look at the quality of opposition, of course, it was very difficult. Brazil, which are the tournament favorites, and Croatia, Mexico, top opposition. But of course, with the kind of quality that Cameroon had in their side, they were expected to do more. A lot was happening behind the scenes, though, with the Cameroon FA before the players even got there. And this is another issue that keeps rearing its ugly head when it comes to African teams in major tournaments, not only the World Cup. The issue of bonuses was one of them. Now, in the build-up to the tournament in Brazil, the players refused to board the plane, and they were basically striking, if you will, over a pay dispute with their FA. This was settled. A financial package was agreed to with Cameroon's Football Federation, Fecafoot, but the squad's journey to the airport, to the World Cup, I beg your pardon, was delayed. Already, this, for me, sets a negative precedent ahead of the World Cup, because, as you know, it takes a lot of preparation. Mentality is one of the key factors for any side to progress to the World Cup. And if you look at the results with Cameroon languishing at the bottom of the group there, the mentality wasn't there. Already their concentration was gone. It was on the money issue, and this would be the route. You can't only blame the players though. I think the issue comes with administrators who have been criticized by players for being greedy. Some of these players are used to being treated as celebrities and the stars that they are for the clubs that they perform. And when it comes to the FAs, they are expected to make their own travel arrangements and sometimes aren't even given the stipends that they promised. So this is a key issue that needs to be addressed by the administrators in Africa before Africa can really move forward. Of course, Algeria was one of the stars of the tournament. They seem to have their house in order, but that's a story for another day, and this is where I have to leave it. With that, it's back to you in the studio, Chris.
Interesting observations there. Many thanks there to Mauli for that insightful information. Do join us after the break, because when we come back, we'll be joined by a panel of soccer experts right here in our studios to help us unpack this conundrum on why Africa seemingly underperforms at the World Cup. And that's only on Africa 360.
Despite us as Africa not going very far, looking at the bigger picture, I think Europe is overrepresented in the World Cup.
We all believe that African, they can't really get there. They can't win the World Cup. We see that it is an impossible thing, and I think it's high time we just get out of that mentality. When you encourage your people, your players, and a lot of benefits is set in place for them, at the end of the day, you see that they'll perform better and well.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, you're watching Africa 360 today. We're looking into the state of African soccer and asking that perennial question that we seem to be asking as Africans. Why are national teams always seemingly underperform at major competitions like the World Cup? Well, helping me to unpack this very difficult conversation and to take our discussion a little bit further, I'm joined by Mark Uma and Ike Opedike, as well as Anthony John Wayne, who are all well-renowned soccer analysts, pundits, and commentators. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on Africa 360. Let me start with you, Mark. As I said in the introduction, it's a perennial question. Why do Africans seemingly underperform at World Cup tournaments? Or is this just a sad indictment that is not well placed on African teams?
Underperforming presupposes certain expectations. I would like to just look at this, start off with this immediate World Cup we've had. I think Africa's performance has appreciated compared to what we had in 2010. 2010 was a disaster. And Ghana just saved our face. But Nigeria, Ghana, and Algeria have really lifted their games. The Ghanaians, even though they have gone out in the group stage, they did not disgrace themselves. Neither did the Algerians. And I can tell you, after Algeria, there is no European who will play joking with Africans. But there is a big problem with Cameroon, and there is a problem with Ivory Coast.
But let's bring Anthony in here. I would argue, alternatively, that to say we should really be celebrating the fact that for the first time we've had two African teams in Nigeria and, of course, Algeria making it. Surely we should be asking for more here.
Yeah, I think that's pretty peculiar to the African situation. We celebrate mediocrity, but that's not something we should be doing, I think. Two countries, we just get into the last 16, we get booted out, we gotta get excited about that. I really don't think that's the way to go. Just a lot of pending problems in Africa. You can call it discipline, mental strength, managerial upheaval, team cohesion, just to name a few. But all of these things are really problems we have to single out and obviously solve going forward. Africa has got a rotten problem.
And it's so sad here, Ike, because earlier on, I think it was in the 1990s, Pele, the famous soccer icon, predicted that by the year 2000, an African team would raise, the World Cup.
Yes.
We seem far away from that.
Yeah, but if you know Pele very well, everybody knows you don't depend on Pele's predictions because he always gets it wrong. But Pele made that prediction based on everything being equal, based on the performance of the African teams in 1994 when Nigeria came and performed very well. So there was expectation that if Africa could, with Cameroon playing in 1990, get into the quarterfinals, Nigeria playing very well in 1994, losing out to Italy, in the group stage. So everybody expected by 20,000, by the year 2000, Africa, 2010, that Africa would at least get to the finals, if not win the cup. But it hasn't happened. And, somehow it is surprising in some ways. And if you look at it in other ways, it's not surprising because Africa is very unpredictable when it comes to developments and stuff like that. So
is it the case that maybe we are expecting too much? Because if I look at the structural system under which teams qualify to play, of the 54 African teams, or 54 countries, only 48 countries qualify. And of those 48 in the qualification, only 5 make it to the actual World Cup. When you look at Europe, there are 13 teams that make it there. That means there is a structural imbalance here, Mark.
First and foremost, and this is why I want, despite us as Africa not going very far, looking at the bigger picture, I think Europe is overrepresented in the World Cup. There are 53 countries in UEFA, there are 54 in Africa. They have 13 automatic places, we only have 5. But then to clamor for more, we must do well with what we have.
Why do we have to prove ourselves, Mark?
No.
Why do we have to prove ourselves when we have a continent of 54 countries that play really well? Why should Africa prove itself?
No, you see, it's not, the gist of my argument is that Africa, CONCACAF, which is Central and North America, and South America, have raised their hands up. Even if you look at the group stage, 13 European teams, only 6 come out. 6 South American teams, 5 come out. CONCACAF had 4, 3 come out. That means that Europe is overrepresented. And one of the things I want to really put forward when this competition is over is that I think CONCACAF, South America and Africa should be given 1 additional places, and those 3 places be taken from Europe. Europe is overrepresented.
And when we talk of overrepresentativity of Europe here, what we note, especially from a lot of our African teams, the big West African teams that we're talking about, especially in this World Cup, most of those players actually play in Europe and other major leagues. So what's the challenge here?
But what you have to look at is the quality. I mean, a lot of times we just want to be patriotic. But leave patriotism on the side and let's just look at it holistically as it is. Okay, if you look at a Nigerian team where a lot of our hopes rested on Mikel Obi, let's say, he's not even a regular at Chelsea. Okay, I mean, that's the guy who's supposed to lead the front. If you look at Cote d'Ivoire, bar Yaya Toure, there's really not that person who is the first or the second guy on the coach's list when he wants to make his 11. So I think, like you said before, I totally agree with you on over-expectation because the quality, it's really not there. You look at an Argentina team, everybody in that 11 starts a game wherever they play in their club.
Mark is vigorously disagreeing.
I disagree for one reason.
I think going back to the issue of representation, FIFA used 2 criteria to assign continents representatives. They look at number as well as performance. In terms of number, Africa has it, and it's not going to change. But in terms of performance, we don't really have it.
When you say performance, specifically, what do you say?
In FIFA competitions.
But how will we perform in FIFA competitions when we're underrepresented at those forums?
But then that means we are sending the very best of the best, who should actually move higher than we've moved. I mean, to be honest, there's nothing to celebrate, though it's a landmark that Africa, for the first time, is having 2 teams qualifying from the group stages. At this age, should we be celebrating that?
Should we?
No, we shouldn't.
Egypt was the first country in
Guys,
Africa.
we haven't even made it to a semi-final.
Exactly. That's my
for the whole history of Africa. So what do you expect?
The World Cup?
Now, when you say
1954 or something, since then,
go ahead.
Yes. Now, when you say, I'm very happy you've talked about semi-finals. Because that brings in another variable which is very important, and that is FIFA referees. I'm not going to blame all referees, but in 1990, Cameroon was robbed of an opportunity to go to the semi-finals.
Yeah.
At this World Cup, Nigeria lost the 2 goals that were scored against Nigeria were clean.
Yes.
We are not going, but that's where fairness ended.
Yes.
11 Nigerian players played against 12 people. 11 French people and the referee.
1994,
All right?
Nigeria versus Italy.
Yes. So, and a similar thing in 1994, Nigeria versus Italy. So, to some extent, we say, and let me tell you.
Let's just hold it there, gentlemen, and we'll pick it up after the break as we continue our discussion on African soccer and its challenges, particularly as we focus on the World Cup and why Africa seem to be the perennial underachievers at these international tournaments, and that's only on Africa 360.
A country like Costa Rica, probably they don't even have money to pay these people. Probably it's a handshake or play for your country. It's the 3 Lions in those days. We put our hands on our chest and we said, we're going to play for the 3 Lions, and that's what it was about.
Yeah.
You know.
No African team actually prepares adequately for the World Cup. They just get some players together and put them there. And the World Cup is not about that.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Africa 360 Today. We are looking into the achievements and, of course, some of the failures of African soccer teams, particularly at the FIFA World Cup stage or level. Before we went to break, Mark was lamenting the fact that what we've basically seen in Africa is what appears to be bias, if I can call it that, particularly on the part of some of the officials. Do you agree, Ke?
Absolutely. Critical decisions are not made in FIFA offices or in meetings. They are made in the field of play. When they give a penalty against you, you're going to concede a goal, and you might lose the match. When your players are injured, like Osaze is 3 weeks out with a broken leg, Matuidi didn't even get a yellow card. He just got a preaching, not a warning. I call it preaching.
But guys, so, do you know what I want to do right now?
It demoralizes players.
Do you know what I want to do, gentlemen? The problem with our conversation now is that we seem to be according blame everywhere else, but failing to look at what the challenge is with us as Africans, with us as African soccer enthusiasts, and indeed as African administrators. I would put it to you, Anthony, that one of the challenges that Africa faces is that there's a lack of development, and that the administration of the game by Africans is really appalling. Do you agree?
Absolutely. You know, we're racking our brains over 5% of the problem, which is the referees. I really think 95% is out of context, which is what we're going to talk about. Look at the transition. I mean, transition. If you look at the, let's say, age group under 21, the guys that played with, let me give you examples. The Gears, when they won the European Championship. Where are the same Africans that were with them in that stage?
Where are they?
Where are they?
That's what I'm asking
that's
you.
That's the question. They're nowhere to be found.
So development,
development. Still touching on that development issue. One of the positives that has come out of this World Cup, look at Switzerland. Switzerland won the under-17 World Cup in Nigeria. And they were again the core in the under-20 group, and now they are on the stage. We are beginning to have that. If you look at the Nigerian team now, okay, I think one of the strongest things that have come out of there is that they are beginning to blood the younger generation. Look at Algeria. Apart from Majdi Bouguera, apart from Halish and Hassan Yebda, those were the 3 who were here for the World Cup. The rest of them are new players. So there is a blooding. Now, what I feel, starting from the team, we need to have codes of conduct. I'm very happy Kwesi Appiah has said, you know, the federation has shown support in him. The GFA have said, we are giving you an extra mandate. They're bringing a code of conduct which will deal with some of the disciplinary issues.
But before we look into some of the players and the disciplinary issues that we've said, you know, someone once said that when you look at administration of soccer in Africa, it's almost an allegory of administration or governance generally in Africa, in that there are challenges relating to corruption, there are challenges relating to nepotism, there are challenges relating to all sorts of isms that are negative that you can think about when you talk of governance. What can we do to get our houses right as African FAs or football associations?
What we can do is very simple, but it's not simple. It's to eradicate corruption in football, because it's at the root of almost every problem we have. Look at the countries that protested during the World Cup. Nigerian players went on a strike.
Yep.
Ghana players went on a strike. Cameroon, the same thing.
Yeah.
And even Ghana, they fought the officials. Now, why are they fighting? Because they want their monies to be paid to them while they were playing the World Cup.
Yeah.
But we know that doesn't make sense. But the fact is, and the players know it, is that when they leave the World Cup, when they go back to their clubs, they will likely lose that money.
But should we really make it something to really
if they were
thought about? No. A country like Costa Rica, probably they don't even have money to pay these people. Probably it's a handshake or play for your country. It's the Three Lions in those days. We put our hands on our chest and we say, we're going to play for the Three Lions. And that's what it was about.
Yeah.
You know, when you watch, let's just take it out of context, British and Irish Lions. I've seen them before. When these guys play rugby, it's a different kind of rugby. You don't care how much money they pay them. They play for that unity. They play for that federation. And that's where Africa really needs to change their mentality around a little bit, and let's just play for national pride.
And it's so bad here, Mark, that we also understand, just following on this theme, that President Mahama had to send 3 million
by air
to Brazil as bonuses for these guys. Surely there must be more to blame than just about the money.
We are talking in tandems. Africa, sports, not just football, but sports is moving from amateur to professional.
All right.
Okay? And that means capital inflows are coming in. That type of transition also requires better governance. CAF is doing something about training people in terms of administration, etc., etc. But I want to harp on John Wayne's point. And this is where sub-Saharan Africa must learn from North Africa, because I stay very close with the North Africans. Algeria, every player was accorded $250,000 for qualifying for 2010, but they were not given it before. It came much after. Because one thing I like about those Arab people in North Africa, they play for their flag.
They play with
that's much more important. And then later on you can be paid. The Nigerian teams, why Pele spoke about the 1990s, is it was not only at the World Cup. Remember, Nigeria won the Olympic gold medal, and Bebeto and them refused to go and collect their medal because they felt that how can they be beaten by these people from Africa? You see, and what I like about players, you know, players like Kwano Nwankwo, players like Okocha, players like Michael Essien, players like Samuel Eto'o, they play with passion. When it's time for them to be called to their national team, they come running and they're humble. You see, so there is an element of patriotism. Yes, we must cope with corruption, but the players also have their role.
So then, Ike, you know, as we begin to wind down our conversation here, I must ask a question. We've been talking about a lot of the challenges that face a lot of African teams, but there is positivity. There's a lot of love for the beautiful game here in Africa. There's great talent on the continent, as we see a lot of our players playing, every weekend over there. Now, do you think a time will come when an African team will win? And do you think that will be soon?
I think that will be soon, honestly. There's a lot of positive to take from this World Cup. If you look at the Nigerian team, JJ said it, and I feel the same way, that this is a lost opportunity for Africa to get to the semi-final. The Nigerian team was ready. Algeria gave their best, but they couldn't make it. But Nigeria was there. They were on their way. France was already out, except for the referee and some administrative and other issues.
Do you agree with that, Anthony?
We are there.
I'm iffish about it, and I'll tell you something. I think what needs to be breathed down the throat of every administrator, every person involved in soccer in Africa has to be just that genuine desire. I really think there's no genuinely coming from us. We don't love each other enough for us to want. Really, it is. Because I don't understand how you're going to take somebody else's money that belongs to this person and you're going to use it. Yes, the person needs to complain, but again, there's a time that you need to complain. When I called it on ENCA that Nigeria was going to win, on that Thursday when I heard the news, I'm like, guess what? They lose it. And guess what? It happened.
So you're a bit skeptical there. Mark, finally, just wrap it up for us.
I'm optimistic. In our lifetime, it may not happen in Russia, but I'm very confident in Qatar. We're going to have at least a team in the semi-finals.
A team in the semi-finals, most likely at the next World Cup. Well, unfortunately for the World Cup in 2014, we didn't really go that far, only making it, unfortunately, to the knockout stages. And let's hope that Africa, my fellow African brothers, will continue to succeed. That does, unfortunately, bring us to the end of this edition of Africa 360. You can join the debate by telling us what you think about African soccer. Do you think an African team will ever lift the FIFA World Cup trophy? Or are we just a little bit overambitious as a continent? You can also join the debate by liking our Facebook page. You can tweet us your views at Africa360_ENCA. You can also send us an email at africa360@enca.com. So until next time, when we look forward to bringing you Africa like you've never seen it before, do take care. Thank you so much.